just wants to go on the other side of the field and sit in their stands and watch the game from their side and then go out and have a drink with the boys and forget this chosenness and this Samson stuff.
It's wonderful that you say it, because sometimes I felt that, yes, he was not in his right place in our people. Yes, and he needed, to rub his soul and flesh against other culture, and culture that probably is more sensual than the culture he came from, with all the restrictions that Jews suffered from by their own selves, yes, by the rules and the laws of the Torah. And I can understand a person like Samson enjoying terrifically being among the Philistines, having fun with them, making love with them, fighting with them physically. Maybe this was something that he did not find in his own place among the Israelites.
There's a moment in your book when you write, he was weary. Was he weary of being chosen? Was he weary of playing out this fate that had been determined for him in the womb by God?
I believe he was. I believe it was too much for him to take, that the divine grand plan was much bigger for him to shoulder, even him with his gigantic shoulders. He walks in this life without really understanding what is expected of him. And there is a moment after Delilah cuts his hair, and before she calls the Philistines to start to torture him, and he lies on her knees, and many painters drew and painted this wonderful suddenly silent scene in the hustle and bustle of all his life, in all the noise that accompanied him, all the violence, all the thunderstorm of the life of Samson. There is suddenly a very peaceful moment. He lies on her knees or in her lap. He's exhausted, but there is an air of rest, an air of someone who for the first time in his life achieved some tranquility. And, well, maybe for him, being there on her lap, in the heart of the ultimate betrayal on him, because in a moment she's going to give him away.
Every woman in his life betrays him.
Yeah.
Did he have a compulsive need to be betrayed? Is that why he went to their bed?
I believe so. When you see which women he will choose, it will always be women that inevitably would betray him. They are doomed to betray him, and he wants them. But don't we see people like that around us? Don't we see people who are repeatedly would make the wrong choices, who at the very points in which they need to be salvaged, they will do the wrong step? It applies to individuals, it applies to societies, to countries.
It seems to me that Samson is the archetype. He keeps compulsively repeating destructive behavior.
He is, yes, but is it a rarity? Don't you see around you people who are doing this again and again as if they have no choice? Don't you see peoples acting this way? When I look at my country, for example, or when I look at the Palestinians, at any crossroad, when we were given the chance, the miraculous chance sometimes by history, to take the right turn, the turn towards peace, towards reconciliation, towards stopping killing and destruction, we chose always the way to violence and to escalate hatred between us. You know, there are so many similarities to Samson in the way Israel behaves, and one of them is the way we treat power. Power, yeah. You know, 3 years after the Holocaust, after the Shoah, we created a state. We created an army that became immediately a regional superpower, maybe international superpower. We are in a way like a mutation of power. From being, you know, the victims of the Shoah, from being these people who for 2,000 years lived in exile, who had no power, no weapon, no army, nothing like that. We became a superpower. It's a mutation of power. And I am not sure that we really know how to deal with this enormous power. And I think someone who experiences our situation is almost doomed always to choose the more aggressive way, the more vigorous way, as a first choice. And you can trace such a behavior in the history of Israel throughout the years. Now, part of it is not our responsibility. Our neighbors and enemies were very productive and effective in creating this problem as well. But I'm interested also in our side. What is in us that prevents us, even when we can, to come to a kind of acceptable, to a kind of more political definition of ourselves within borders. If you have no borders, it is like you live in a house that the walls are all the time moving, a house with mobile walls. You do not really know where you end and where the other starts.
Is this why you were attracted to the story of Samson? Trying to figure out who you are, what Israel is, what you do with power in a hostile world?
Yeah, I mean, being an Israeli is a full-time job. But I mean, I wouldn't trade it for any other existence. I mean, I was born Jew, I was born in Israel. I think it's a fascinating place to live. I lament the fact that we are deprived of exploring all the possibilities of living in such a state, such a combination of so many people who poured into Israel from 70 countries and bringing in all their psychologies, mentalities, senses of humor, knowledge, manners, habits, all these. This could create such a wonderful place, an interesting place to live, and at the same time we don't get to explore it because we are all the time, we just survive from one catastrophe to another. You know, I always think about this paradox of us as a people, that throughout our history we survived to live our life, and now we live to survive only. This is not enough. We can have so much more. We are so strong as a state. We are so Samsonite. Yes, allegedly we have 200 atom bomb, and yet we are so afraid. By the way, like Samson, whenever he confronts a real danger, he collapses. He cries to God like a child. Why? Because like us, we do not really believe that this power is ours. We did not really settle our relationship with this power. Because of that, we are doomed to use it excessively. Because of it, we do not really create a code of behavior regarding our enormous power. Maybe if time comes, if we enjoy some years of stability and peace, if we start to trust our enemies and neighbors, if they will be trustworthy, it's also a question. Maybe then also our attitude towards this power would change.